Hey y'all, thanks for dropping by Designed by Kathy. Today I want to talk about how to protect your art. I'm going to go through 4 completely different types of methods to protect your art pieces, preserve them, and in some cases bring out a little more. So let me get set up and we'll get right to that. The first thing I want to talk about is, and what I use the most, is this Krylon UV resistant clear. Now this one is gloss. Well, it's got paint all over it, but the gloss. Now this is, to me, a personal preference as to whether or not you want a piece to be glossy or satin or just protected. So this one I use a good bit. I do prefer most of the time using, now this one is the Krylon and this is Valspar. I've used this satin finish a lot. I really like the satin. You know, like I said, I oftentimes do not want a super shiny on a particular piece. Don't want to take away from what's there. As if this one that I'm going to be doing today has a good bit of sheen to it, but I do want it to be protected. So what I'm going to use, this is Krylon Crystal Clear Acrylic Coating. Now I'm going to use this, and I'm going to hope that it doesn't fog up my camera lens. That won't be good at all, but we're going to see. Oh, and I hope it doesn't choke me. Make sure I have all my extra noise makers turned off. So I'm just going to kind of start, and I'm just going to do a light little coat up and down. I'm going to put several coats just to make sure that there's no uneven places on it. And I'm going to let that dry. We're going to let all of these dry for a day or so and come back and take a look at them to finish up the video. But I'm going to set this aside, and next I want to use what you've been hearing a lot about using is the, and I'm spilling it everywhere. My lid didn't want to go on right. So this is the Minwax Polycrylic Protective Finish. So let me get ready, get another piece, and we'll get ready to use this. This piece is one I was experimenting with one day, and so it has a lot of white in it. And I want to, I purposely wanted to, I've just made a real big mess here. You've probably seen a lot of things lately that is having you put, or a recipe, so to speak, is calling for this Minwax Polycrylic. Now, I just recently made myself a little DIY craft table out of a piece of plywood that I painted, and it was all just, I sanded and I painted, and I sanded some more and I painted, and I put a coat of this on, and the next day it was yellow. Let's stir this gently. You don't want to shake. You don't want to shake it, but you do want to stir. And with a lot of varnishes, it says to make your strokes long, and I'm using just a sponge brush here, to make your long straight. Don't go back and forth. it just says that a lot of them don't like that. So if it doesn't like it, let's don't do it. And I'm hoping that it doesn't yellow, but it certainly did yellow my little table, which I ended up having to flip it over, sand again, do all, and of course I picked the best side, you know, to do. So I had to flip it over and do the whole process over again on the little bit less desirable side. And it's really hard to do this and paint one direction because your instinct is to go back and forth. So it's killing me. But again, that's what I have read, that you want to keep your strokes the same directions. I'm going to get these edges because I want to protect those as well. I'm going to come back with another coat. Probably several actually, because just want to make sure that I have it thoroughly coated. Now if you're doing this, if you're using the Minwax over a darker surface, you know, it's most likely going to change your surface a little bit, but you won't see that same yellowing as you will on white. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it was just whatever happened on my little wood piece, that it yellowed literally overnight. I'm going to touch up those edges again just to make sure. And it is totally looking like I've got everything coated nicely. I do see a lot of bubbles, but I would not put heat on this. I wouldn't put heat on it. It is a... let's see, it says it's easy water cleanup, but I don't think I would put my torch on it. But let's try the heat gun and see if it pops these bubbles. Alright, that looks like it did a pretty good job of taking out the majority of those bubbles. So, I'm going to let this again, I'm going to let this dry and cure for, now, but I do see now, I got a little, now that I can see that, I got a little spot that I'm going to have to come back over. Right there. Oops, maybe it wasn't. It was just something in the paint. So there we go. Alright, so now I am going to go to my next piece, and I'm going to use a different varnish. We're going to see how that works. Again, I'm going to use a piece that has a lot of white in it so that we can determine how it's going to react with a white background to keep our bright whites there. For this piece, I've got this interior exterior water-based non-toxic gloss varnish. This is made by Hobby Lobby, so I guess it's Hobby Lobby's brand. It doesn't have any other brand name on it. It did say to shake gently, so I have shaken gently. And I'm just going to pour some on here, and I'm going to use the sponge brush again. Not the same sponge brush, mind you. It does have a little bit of an odor, but not an overbearing one. What's killing me right now is that spraying inside. Whoa! And I had to turn the air off so that because it makes too much noise. But I'm going to be needing to walk outside in a minute. So this one I have not used. I just recently bought this bottle of varnish. Just want to make sure it's a nice, even coat. Get my edges and corners. It is spreading on very nicely. Okay, that looks pretty even. Okay, that was in the paint. Looks nice and even now. And so we will again come back in a couple of days and check this one. And last but not least, I'm going to be resining a piece. It's a piece that doesn't have any white in it, but it just looked like it needed something to bring out the colors in it. The colors got a little dull on me, and so I really wanted to see if I could bring those colors out a bit. It is a resin that I've not used before. I'm excited to use it and try it. So let me get that piece ready, and we'll do a little resin. This resin that I'm using today is it's Nuevo, and it is Faux Rizzle. I haven't used theirs. I've seen a lot of ads, so I was like, I've got to try it. I've used art resin. I love art resin. I've used several different others that I really liked. I do like the this seems to have like a higher temperature resistance, I guess you could say. You can handle higher temperatures like your finished piece, because generally, you know, you do a piece, you can't get it in, you know, heat on it, or it out in the heat. But anyway, it did say do not use a wooden spoon, so I've used this little plastic spoon. It did say to stir for 3 minutes. Be sure, whatever kind of resin you're using, to read the instructions, because they're all different. Also, you want to wear gloves, and you want to keep baby wipes on hand. Baby wipes, if you get it on your hand, if you do get it on your hands or your skin, baby wipes if you do it immediately, will get it off pretty well. So I'm going to just put this out. I'm going to spread this with just my hands and my gloves. I'm going to put a fairly thin layer. But I'm going to scrape all of this out. Be sure you do your resin in a well-ventilated place. I also checked the level on this. I used my little level. I downloaded a little level on my phone. And so, because I don't have my, I'm still spread between my house and my art studio, so I didn't have my little level with me. Therefore, I have one on my phone, which makes it pretty handy. I did tape the back of this up because as resin runs over the edges, if you don't babysit it all day and scrape off underneath, you'll have little hardened little things on the bottom, on the back side rather, that can hinder how you're going to hang it on a wall. So it's just a good thing to tape it off. I don't know about this resin. I know with a lot of my others, after about 8 hours, I can tape. It's still not fully cured by any means, so don't just go pick up your piece, but you can pull the tape off. Because once it's on here like glass, it's going to be there. Now I can already tell it's looking like this is really going to bring out some of these colors in here that had just dulled. Can't remember, it was one of my experiments, so I really can't remember exactly what what I used in it, but it dulled my colors, and I didn't like that. So for this particular piece, yes, I want it to bring out these pretty colors in here, because there's gorgeous colors. They just didn't show up good. You want to make sure keep your hair back when you're doing resin, well, or varnish as well, because you do not want your hair, cat hair, dog hair, kid's hair to cure inside this, because it's going to be there. I actually saw somebody post one day and said, "Do you get to charge extra for dog hair?" Maybe if it was the customer's dog hair, but not yours. Now, as you know, or if you don't know, the reason I say make sure you've got your piece level is resin is self-leveling. So little places that you might see that maybe looks like it's a little bumped up or something, it's gonna level out because it is self-leveling. Even pulling it across like that is going to go back down and level. And that looks like, I can't tell if that's a bubble. I don't think so. I think it is a bubble. But we're going to do a couple of different things for the bubbles. Now there are several things. You can take a toothpick and just tap the little bubbles and that will pop them. You can take your torch, and I'm going to see what just putting some heat on it will do. I'm going to use this just a little bit in one part. But I know a lot of people have told me they're not comfortable using a torch, and I don't blame you if you've not used it. And mine's about out anyway. It's about time to refill. Oops, that was the wrong way. Oh, no one. Yep, I think we're empty. So we need to refill that. So let's just try the heat. Well, that actually seems to be working pretty well. Get it as close as you can to your piece without without actually touching it. You don't want to get the resin on your blower. But we're going to let this cure with the rest of them for a couple of days, and we'll come back and take a look and see if we need to add a second coat. Again, I just put a really thin coat on here, but I want to see how that's going to work out, and then we'll come back in a couple of days, take a look, and do some comparisons. So y'all hang tight. You won't know that it's a couple of days, but it's going to be. Anyway, so I'll see you in a minute. So here are our findings or our conclusions of the 4 different products that I use to protect and seal my pours. This one, this is the one we use. I use the Minwax Polycrylic. I believe it's well, I mean, I know it was a gloss, but the clear, used the crystal clear, and I am happy to report that it did not yellow. It didn't yellow at all. You know, I don't know if you, I mean, I mentioned that when I did my little DIY cricket table, that it yellowed like overnight on a white surface. So I was really happy to report that this didn't, and it made a nice finish on it, and you know, I can tell it's going to be really nicely protected, so that's a good thing. This piece, I used the Hobby Lobby interior exterior gloss varnish. Again, I can't tell that much difference between it and the Polycrylic. I guess so. It would just be what you had available, you know, which was easier to get your hands on to use if you wanted this gloss finish. But again, this one made a nice protective finish on it, so that was a good conclusion on that one. Then we have this piece that I used the crystal clear acrylic coating by Krylon. It's not as glossy. It didn't make as glossy a sheen as the 2 varnishes, but it is a nice gloss, and it is I can tell it's a nice protective finish on here. So that one, it probably does come in satin. Again, very often I like to use more of a satin finish than the high gloss. I don't always want every piece to be super glossy. Think about the gloss hanging on your wall and how your light's going to reflect on it. So it's just personal preference, and maybe how that particular painting looks to make your decision for the satin or the gloss finish. And then I have the piece with the Faux Rizzle resin, and it did just what I was hoping it would do. Brought out these colors, just made them pop, and you can see it brought out all the little tiny cells that this painting made. But the colors, for whatever reason, had dulled, or you know, when it dried, it was a real dull finish. So this just made a great great finish on it, and it's like glass. So this one, again, it's going to be your personal preference as to whether or not you want to resin a piece or, you know, put some type of varnish. But it is always good if it's going to be a piece that you want to keep for yourself or a piece you want to sell, to definitely put a protective finish on it. So really happy with all of these. Again, it's just going to, for me anyway, it's going to depend on the individual painting as to which type finish to put on it. So that's gonna be up to you and your personal preference. But if you have any questions about any other types of protective finishes, be sure to pop those in the comments below, and we'll be sure to explore them. Just let me know, you know, what you may be curious about as far as different protective finishes. But these, I was really happy with each one. Each one is a little different. The two varnishes, very close. Those were very close. Let's say very different, but those were very close. But so that's just going to be, and I don't remember what this costs versus what the can of the polycrylic. So that may be your factor there, is the cost of, you know, of which one costs more or less, and you want to get more for your money on that. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch the video, and I hope that wherever you are, that you're safe and your family and loved ones are safe. So until next time, God bless.